Pig. Spider Pig, Spider Pig, does whatever a Spider Pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a Spider Pig. Spider Pig, Spider Pig, does whatever a Spider Pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, we can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a Spider Pig. Spider Pig, Spider Pig, does whatever a Spider Pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a Spider Pig. Spider Pig, Spider Pig, does whatever a Spider Pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, we can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a Spider Pig. Spider Pig, Spider Pig, does whatever a Spider Pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, we
We have finally gotten to the adaptation of the Dragon Ball Super superhero movie into the manga, and you can celebrate because it's not too late to get your hands on a piece of the then, now, and forever Gohan merch line that celebrates Dragon Ball Super superhero, the movie, and now the manga, available in t-shirts, multiple different types, and hoodies, as well as different colors and sizes, ships all over the world. This merch line was the most successful I had ever done in the channel, and now is your chance to own then, now, and forever. The link is down below. We have got early, super early, chapter 91 leaks for the DBS manga. If you want to wait for the chapter to come out, it will be out this coming Sunday. I'll have my review up that morning, and we'll discuss it, I'm sure, as the days go by. But we do have some leaks of chapter 91. If you don't care, hang out. If you want to wait, that's okay too. We have now gotten to the point where we're at the Dragon Ball Super superhero movie adaptation part, but there's obviously some extra scenes, and we're going to discuss a little bit of that here today on this video. Real quick programming note. This Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, join me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/BigDGeekdom101. We're going to be finishing up the Pilaf arc, the last 3 episodes of the Pilaf arc of Dragon Ball, this Saturday on Twitch, twitch.tv/BigDGeekdom101. If you're already following me over there, then you're good. If not, join us because it's a fun time watching this in high definition. The absolute best way to watch Dragon Ball is with me on Twitch. Now, that's the old stuff. Let's get to the current stuff. Let's go. Yeah, I don't want to save that document. Okay, here we go. This is a new scene that has been added to the manga adaptation. Early on in the movie, if you remember, Magenta and Dr. Hedo are having a discussion, and this is where Magenta tries to, basically recruit him for the Red Ribbon Army. Here we have Krillin, who is actually with Hachimaru. Well, you see Hachimaru there on the left. He seems to be following the car that Carmine was driving with Magenta and with Hedo in it. So this is extra stuff for Krillin to do. This manga chapter does seem to have a lot more for Krillin to do that was not in the movie. So if you're a Krillin fan, you're at least going to get some more stuff. Obviously, many of you have been following me for a long time. You already know that the manga and the movies and the anime are different continuities, so there's going to be some changes. But most of it seems to be the same. Here we have Krillin hiding atop the car because they're trying to get Dr. Hedo, follow Dr. Hedo and Magenta. Remember, Krillin was also important to the prequel stuff that we saw last 3 chapters. So then the very next page here, Krillin jumps off, and this is, of course, that conversation they had. No different than the film, apparently. Just extra stuff with Krillin that wasn't there. Krillin was nowhere to be found in the movie version, so it's just extra stuff. Maybe Toyotaro's a Krillin fan. And then here's the part where the car spins. If you remember in the movie, this did happen. So again, very similar. Next page here we have what appears to be Hachimaru being injured. Like, look at Hachimaru there on the right panel. Looks like he's injured there. So that's new, kind of. But of course, they have to introduce Hachimaru because we know what ends up happening to Magenta later on in the story. Next chapter here, we have Hachimaru again having a confrontation with Krillin. That's new, and again, it's more for Krillin to do. I think some Krillin fans are going to be pissed because it looks like he's over here getting embarrassed by a spy robot, but hey, take it however you want to. We'll see what happens. And here is Krillin on the side of the road because he lost them. Hachimaru saved Magenta and Dr. Hedo. So that's all new. Like, it's the same scene with new stuff in it. Moving on, here we have the scene from the film where Piccolo goes to get Gohan to check up on him with the whole thing about him picking up Pan from school. And Gohan has slacked off in his training. Right there in the left, you can see, I'll use my mouse here, you can see the Super Saiyans, as they called it in the dub. That's still there. So it looks like it's just kind of a mimic of what we saw in the film, perhaps with extra dialogue. Here we have the scene where Piccolo tries to test Gohan's reflexes and Gohan blocks them. I'm glad that Toyotaro was able to get the haircut and the look of Gohan to match up with the film. So that's good. That's good stuff. Next chapter here. This was not in the movie, however. Piccolo uppercuts Gohan. He uppercuts him with the other hand. Gohan's reflexes are apparently not as quick as he had thought. And I like this. I actually like this a lot. I really do. Here we have the scene where Piccolo manifests his clothing, his cape and whatnot to Gohan to remind him to keep training. If you've seen the movie, you already know where this is going. So this is the first time in quite a few chapters that we don't know where this is going. It kind of reminds me of when the Battle of Gods manga arc was out, and we kind of knew where they were going because we had seen the movie and the anime, but when the manga version came out, which was after the anime, like slower, that is when, well, no, it was during, I think it was during, actually. I don't really remember. It's been like years. But basically, we were kind of like trying to figure out what they were going to change. That seems to be the same energy that we're in right now. Moving on here, we have the arrival, and again, it looks different here, but it's the same story. The arrival and confrontation early in the movie between Piccolo and Gamma 2. We have Gamma 2 there being revealed. Again, very similar to the film. There's no question that Toyotaro has a copy of the film, and he's obviously using that to draw up his characters. He got the look of Gamma 2 right, thankfully. I know some folks were wondering, like, if we're going to get another set of androids before the Gammas. We talked about this a few times in previous videos about how we could get, like, you know, Delta or something. But no, the Gammas have already been built. If you're one of those fans who wanted to see Dr. Hedo building the Gammas, unfortunately, that's not in this chapter, at least not from the leaks that we have so far. And nothing about Broly yet. So again, man, I'm wondering why they're doing this in a different way. I kind of really wanted them to introduce or to reintroduce Broly here. I'm sure we'll get it. I don't think we're not going to get that. It's just strange that you want to have the Broly training happen earlier. Like, you want to show how he ended up on Beerus's planet and why he was on Beerus's planet. I think that's important. Here we have the awesome scene where Gamma 2's, like, you know, doing the gunslinger gimmick, and this is, of course, where Piccolo recognizes that he is not a human. That's not what he is. And then we have, of course, the superhero pose, and Toyotaro makes sure to zoom in on the red ribbon insignia. So it looks like a lot of the story is being adapted the same. A few extra scenes, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to make any crazy changes. And I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting that to be the case with this manga chapter. And, I mean, I don't know if they're going to add more stuff with Cell Max, or, you know, if they're going to tell us what happened after, like with Dr. Hedo working for Capsule Corp. If we're going to see more of Goten and Trunks, I don't think we will, because Victory Uchida said that their part of the story is done. So if you were waiting for more Goten and Trunks, what do you want me to tell you? Not happening. And here we have, actually, this scene. I listed these wrong, and I apologize for that. This is, I guess I haven't read the chapter yet, so I don't know what order they're in, but this is probably at the beginning when Krillin is leaving the police department after the speech was made about getting the Red Ribbon Army, leading to Magenta and Hedo's conversation in the car, which is what leads to the recruitment. So let's see when the full chapter comes out what happens. I'm sure I'll have a full summary either today or tomorrow here on the channel, and then we'll have the reviews up this weekend. Thank you, as always, for your support. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And Saturday on Twitch.
Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video I want to discuss something that I have wondered about and many other fans have ever since the Cell Saga of Dragon Ball Z. And that relates to one of the best fights in the entire franchise, and definitely one of my top 5, especially when it comes to Dragon Ball Z. And that would have to be Piccolo versus Android 17. And who would have actually won the fight between the two of them? So what I'm going to be doing here in this video is going in depth into the fight, analyzing it panel by panel in the manga, and discussing in depth who I think would have won, with evidence for, against, and everything else along those lines. So let's get into that right now and start discussing that. So of course, as we know, what ended up happening in the Cell Saga was that after Piccolo merged and reunited with Kami, the god of the earth, taking the evil side and the good side at one point of King Piccolo and Kami, and reuniting them together into one body in the nameless Namekian, which we would just go on to call Piccolo, even though Goku called him Kamikolo at one point. The fact of the matter is Piccolo got a significant power boost, and this was able to propel him to the level of Android 17, the more powerful of the two different androids between him and 18. Of course, 16 was more powerful, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Nonetheless, what ended up happening is 17 and 18 showed up on Master Roshi's island, and so Piccolo, in this situation, had to fight him. So they went off to one of these nondescript islands that they always tend to find in Dragon Ball, somewhere in Micronesia or something, I don't really know, and they ended up fighting together in what ended up being one of the best fights overall. So of course, initially going into this fight, as we see, 17 doesn't think that Piccolo really stands any chance whatsoever. Of course, he seems to think he knows Piccolo's every move and all of his capabilities. But he couldn't be more wrong in this case, because as we would go to see, he would be proven wrong very shortly. After all, Piccolo goes on to fight the androids. He didn't really know that he was only going to be able to have a one-on-one fight. As you can see right here, Piccolo's surprised when he finds out that 17 is going to be fighting alone. So what ends up happening next? Well, Piccolo is able to, in turn, go on to fight against 17 right here. He powers up to his full power in this new bulked up form, this state that he has, not really a form. But nonetheless, what ends up happening is 16 is actually really surprised and taken off guard by the fact that Piccolo is so powerful. In fact, he even states, that's not Piccolo. And at this point, Piccolo rushes right behind 17, elbows him, knocks him down, kicks him, smashes his face right into the ground. He starts eating up that dirt right there and then. And, looks like Piccolo clearly has the advantage here. He goes to blast 17. And 17, however, gets out of the way, but not without taking some damage on his clothing, as you can see. And typically what that means in Dragon Ball is when you see somebody taking some real battle damage with regard to their clothes, and you can see the bloodied lip, that means that somebody is able to get through their general defenses. In other words, what that means is that, in Dragon Ball, people have what is kind of like a force field around them generated by their ki, or pure energy in the case of the androids, their automatic ki. So Piccolo was able to get right through there. Of course, 17 wasn't going all out at the time, but being able to get through 17's barrier is definitely something that's going to become more relevant as the fight goes on and when it comes to this analysis. We see Goku and Gohan are observing the fight from afar on top of Kami's lookout, waiting for them to go into the time chamber. Gohan wants to intervene, but Goku tells him not to. And at this point, Piccolo, he gets right to business. He wants to kill 17 as soon as possible so that he could prevent Cell from becoming perfect and, of course, eliminate the stronger of the two threats androids that are trying to kill Goku and, bring about the dark future that we saw in Future Trunks' timeline. The way that he does this, well, he shoots a bunch of blasts into the sky. 17 is completely confused. He's like, what the heck's going on here? Why do you keep missing me? And, he even kind of in the anime version, you don't even know what you're aiming at, basically. But at this point, 16, you can see, is always aware of what's really going on in these fights. And, there's a good reason for that, which I'll get into soon as well. But what Piccolo was doing was actually enacting a plan right here, in which he activates his Hell Zone grenade, one of the coolest techniques that we see from him in the series, where he hits 17 with all these blasts simultaneously. They all explode in a massive chain reaction, which definitely should, according to Piccolo, have killed 17. With the amount of power that he put into it, and with the amount of power we know 17 to be. However, there is one ace in the hole that 17 was hiding up until this point, or maybe Toriyama just thought of on the spot, which is his barrier. A force field, as Piccolo calls it, in which he's able to, in fact, negate the ability. And this is something we actually see Cell utilize later on during his fight against Goku, when Goku's hitting him with a barrage of ki blasts. So maybe it's possible that Cell inherited that ability from him. Wouldn't be surprised. Too bad. Close, but no cigar. So 17 right here is even admitting that he would be able to, in fact, have been defeated by Piccolo right there had he not used that barrier. So this is also another really interesting little aside that we can make here, too, that kind of ties into 17's later characterization in the franchise, where he's saying, let's go somewhere else, we're destroying this island, save the Earth, So 17, I guess he's kind of like a Sensui character, or maybe even Goku Black in a sense. He'll kill all the filthy mortals, but, let's save the Earth. And then, it's funny, in Super, he goes on to be a park ranger, although really he already kind of was that in the Buu Saga. Once again, Super doesn't really make that real significant character development. And at this point, one of the biggest follies of this fight starts to materialize, which is Cell is able to sense the power of everything going on at the time. He knows that Piccolo must be fighting the androids, otherwise why would he be using all of his power, as we could see right here. So as a result, this is what leads Cell directly there. At this point, 17 starts to praise Piccolo when they go to this next island. You're stronger than I thought. I'm guessing you're not Piccolo after all. Not that I care. I just want to know where Goku is. Are you going to tell me yet? Your plan is to kill Goku? Of course I'm not going to tell you. That's Piccolo's job. He already did it once. He's going to finish it eventually. Then we'll continue until you feel like talking. So 17, I guess, in this sense, isn't really trying to kill Piccolo, so that may be something that we could take into account. But nonetheless, he would have a really difficult time anyway. This is where the two of them get up really close and personal, and they start to have their one-on-one fight, almost kind of like what we saw in the hand-to-hand combat between between Goku and Frieza on Namek. And this is where we get an even more awesome part of the fight, where they're hitting each other with their shots, Piccolo's missing, and then we even get this awesome little shot of 17 when he punches Piccolo, that he actually is going really far into that and punching basically right through him. He's almost turning into like Plastic Man or Luffy at that point, where he's stretching with his body, Mr. Fantastic, I suppose you could say. And, he's knocking Piccolo down, but Piccolo gets right back up, and what does he do at this point? He starts to dodge 17's attacks. And what he says here is, you're pretty fast, but your punch isn't much. What do you think you're talking, or who do you think you're talking to? I'm the most powerful being on Earth. I guess you haven't heard of Cell yet. Well, obviously he hasn't. And that's another thing that maybe we can indicate right here, another possible theory as to the power output of the androids. For all we know with regard to the androids, they always stay at a certain level of power in terms of not losing their energy, something that would become a factor in this fight later on. But another thing is, too, when it comes to their energy output, their damage output, is it really as significant as someone like a Piccolo, for instance, or someone like Goku or Vegeta when they're at a similar level of 17 in base power level, let's say, as a Super Saiyan or so on, but then they can amplify their power beyond that with like a Kamehameha, Big Bang, or Final Flash, or something like that. So that's another thing to take into account. Can the androids truly augment and amplify their power in the same sense that a Piccolo can? If not, then that's another thing that gives Piccolo an advantage here. Because even if he is as equally powerful as 17 in terms of his base power level, you could say, in terms of like his maximum that he'll be giving off if you were to have read a scouter of him, nonetheless, he might be able to put out even more energy than 17, which becomes a bigger factor too. And as we see the two of them start to fight again, 17's dealing damage, so is Piccolo, but Piccolo is starting to get a little bit more worn down as the fight goes on. The two of them are definitely having this sparring match. You know, Piccolo's putting out blasts, he's hitting 17, definitely dealing even more damage to him, but Piccolo starts to huff and puff. And not blow anyone's house down, but definitely huffing and puffing. Because the 17 says, even if we have equal strength, looks like your stamina's running low. My energy is infinite. And this is the point where Cell intervenes and stops one of the best fights in the franchise before it actually comes to its fitting conclusion. So the question here is, what exactly would have happened if this fight kept going? Of course, in terms of the narrative, you could say that perhaps 17 was going to win because, as he says right here, my energy is infinite and yours is running low. So as the fight would continue to go on, in terms of their power levels, if we have 17 right here, Piccolo right here, maybe even Piccolo started a little bit stronger than 17 based upon, you know, some of what we see early on. The fact of the matter is that Piccolo would only continue to decline and decline and decline and decline over time, whereas 17 would always stay at that, you know, 10 out of 10, whereas Piccolo would go 10, 9.8, 9.5, 9, 8, you know, so on and so forth. However, that doesn't mean that Piccolo would actually lose, because, like I mentioned before, Piccolo has the ability to amplify his ki output significantly with special attacks, like, for instance, the Special Beam Cannon. And that's one of the abilities that Piccolo never even attempted to use against 17 or the androids. At this point, that's another really powerful technique, because not only is it a piercing technique that could go through someone's natural barrier, someone's natural force field, but it's very likely that it also would have been able to cut right through 17's force field that we see right here. After all, there was this kind of no limits fallacy that we saw in the Dragon Ball fandom for a very long time, that people are like, oh, 17 could probably negate any energy attack that comes after him, but that's never really stated. And I feel like a sufficient enough attack likely would be able to get through that blast, or that barrier, especially because the fact that we go on to see later on during the fight between Piccolo and Cell, that this is something that is almost a certainty in my eyes, because when it comes to like a straight up fight, a brawl between the two of them, it is likely that 17 one-on-one would be able to take it because, like I mentioned before, the energy. However, there is abilities that Piccolo has, like the Special Beam Cannon, or something that's even more powerful, as we see against Cell, which is that Piccolo goes on to fight Cell. Cell is vastly more powerful than him and everyone else at this point, except for Android 16, because of the fact that he had absorbed so many people, thousands, millions, who really knows at this point, but he definitely augmented his power significantly. You know, the population of the Earth in Dragon Ball is a lot less than on our Earth because of, you know, Piccolo having wiped out most of them when he was King Piccolo, but nonetheless, one of the things that happens is 17 starts playing around with them. He doesn't realize just how powerful Cell is. He's never even heard of this guy, and of course, 17 can't sense energy. So Piccolo jumps in. He's actually able to deal damage to Cell when he's caught off guard, despite the fact that Cell is way more powerful than him or 17. But it's at this point that we end up seeing Piccolo unleash his ultimate technique, the one at the time at least, which is his light grenade. And as you can see right here, he begins to charge it up. Of course, 16 knows it's not going to work because of the fact that he knows how powerful he is, and he can kind of estimate how powerful Piccolo can put out his energy. But Nonetheless, what happens? Piccolo charges up this ultimate technique, and you can immediately see the reaction on 17's face. He knows what's about to happen right here. He knows that this is going to be a technique that's in danger for him too. Way more dangerous than the Hellzone grenade that he utilized earlier in their fight. And what happens? He blasts it, and what does 17 do right here? He jumps right out of the way. He doesn't attempt to put up his barrier. He doesn't attempt to tank the blast or do anything like that. He's like, nope, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge because I know what that thing's going to do. And what happens at that point? We see this massive explosion. Well, not even a massive explosion, a massive blast take off, you know, almost like akin to Vegeta's final flash after he blasted at Perfect Cell. And then we see, you know, mushroom cloud forming. That island is obliterated in the area that he shot it. And look at 17's face one more time. 17 is completely shocked, stunned at the power that Piccolo put out. Same thing with 18. He knows that if that blast were to hit him, well, let's just say 17 wouldn't have fared anywhere near as well as Cell, because, as 16 points out, he's not even hurt. 18 thought for sure he would have wiped out Cell, even though Cell is more powerful than Piccolo and 17. But again, she can't sense ki, whereas 16 can. So, you know, we do see that Cell defeats Piccolo, of course. He breaks his neck, blasts him in a very brutal fashion. You could even see all of his Namekian blood pouring out. Chucks him into the water, you know, die, trash, and he tosses him away. And at that point, we end up seeing this awesome fight taking place between 16 and Cell. But in terms of the fight again between Piccolo and 17, who would have been able to win out of the two of them had their fight not been interrupted by this dude in Dragon Ball Z, and of course the Dragon Ball manga? Well, when it comes down to the evidence of the two fighting, we do see that the two of them are evenly matched in terms of that base level of strength, as I mentioned before. They do have equal strength, which is even admitted to by 17. All the evidence is there. However, 17, although he does have that barrier I mentioned earlier, likely could not be able to match up to the power or tank the power of a Makanko Sapo, the special beam cannon, or that light grenade. And thus, as a result, I think that picture I showed you guys before of 17 jumping the heck out of the way immediately and, you know, being totally shocked by the power that Piccolo put out is a great indicator to me that Piccolo would have been able to defeat 17 with this ultimate attack. He would have tired himself out. He would have, you know, diminished himself a little bit by firing that blast off, because it is such a massive blast that would utilize so much of his on-hand energy. But nonetheless, if he hit 17, I don't think that barrier is going to matter, because 17 is going to probably be obliterated, or at the very least damaged to the point to where he could not continue to fight. So in terms of a one-on-one between the two, I think that Piccolo would have taken it. However, the truth of the matter is that the androids have always been a package deal. They are the two of them that come together with an intent of taking on and defeating an enemy. So if Piccolo was there and he was killing 17, basically, he's beating him down to the point where he's going to kill him, I really doubt that 18 wouldn't have intervened. Same thing when it comes to 16. If Piccolo is charging up that ultimate attack against Android 17, 16 is there sensing everything the entire time. He is completely aware of how powerful Piccolo would be able to send out that energy. You know, he is completely aware that when Cell gets blasted by Piccolo, that it doesn't actually defeat him, that he's totally unharmed. So, with that being said, considering the fact that 16 and Cell have the same level of power, it's very likely that 16 could have stepped in the way and blocked the light grenade or deflected the special beam cannon to save 17's life. Because at the end of the day, you know, he is a robot that values the human life. You know, he's like Arnold at the end of Terminator 2, right? He learned the value of human life, and he's going to make sure to protect it. Same thing for the value of animal life. So You know, 17 and 18 are kind of like his friends. They're his colleagues, basically. They're his allies against Son Goku. And so, as a result, is he going to really let Piccolo kill 17? I doubt it. Same thing with 18. You know, there is a chance that, considering just how powerful that light grenade blast was, Piccolo probably could have even killed 18 and 17 at the same time, because, you know, this blast probably went multiple times beyond his general level of power. It just was insignificant because the fact that, well, 17 or Cell was more powerful, and again 16 was more powerful. So there's a chance Piccolo is going to win that fight. He's going to take out 17, maybe even take out 18 next, or at least, you know, diminish himself by taking out 17 and eliminating the threat of perfect Cell entirely. But at that point, somebody steps in, they stop him, and they defeat Piccolo that way by ganging up on him. So overall, in terms of that fight, I would give the overall match to Piccolo. But with that being said, guys, when it comes to that fight, you guys can let me know down below in the comments what you think. Do you think that's 17, or do you think that Piccolo would have won? Additionally, another thing is, what about Dragon Ball Super? Well, when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, it depends on the arc, of course. If it was the Tournament of Power, I would definitely say 17 could win, even though Piccolo was somewhere in the ballpark of Ultimate Gohan at that point. We saw just how powerful he was. But when it comes to 17, he was tanking blasts or attacks meant for Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, who was way more powerful than Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 Goku near the start of the tournament when he fought Jiren. 17 is even said by Goku at the end of the Tournament of Power to possibly be more stronger than Goku. I don't know why I would say more stronger than Goku, because the fact that that's Goku at that point who unlocked Ultra Instinct multiple times in the same tournament too. But when it comes to Dragon Ball Super Superhero, and Piccolo gets 2 new abilities, 2 new transformations, and becomes, you know, Goliath Piccolo, except he's orange, the fact is, I would give it to Piccolo at that point. But 17's taken advantage of that off-screen training, so who knows? Maybe he's, you know, so powerful he could finger flick Jiren at this point. Difficult to say. Maybe he could even finger flick Orange Piccolo. Although I know that Quaman would definitely hate that. Hey, Quaman, how's it going? But alright, guys, let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Who do you think would win, 17 or Piccolo? And also, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future. And I'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.
Hit that one more time, right? Cause y'all see Yokin. Y'all don't know what Yokin is? That's that other link that I'll be dropping. Cause I got an affiliate marketing with these guys too.
Now try to be obvious. That reasoning with the bit is not gonna work, Tom. You have to hit her.
I'm an assistant district attorney, for Christ's sake.
Tom, you have to get past this. It's okay, Megan. Really? See, Package, she just gave you permission. You see that? Which has a problem in you.
Okay,
You definitely allowed my love, and now time is self-defense. Okay? Is that who you are in regular form?
Stuck in that corner, fucking him up. He said he put his ass in that corner and started fucking him up. Where you going? What? Nah. Stay there. Be still. There you go. Right back to the corner. That big motherfucker can't get out.